Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Marisa Burke in for Ann tonight. The governor is taking bold action to address potential staffing shortages at healthcare facilities across New York State. This comes one day after the deadline for healthcare workers to comply with the state's vaccine mandate. Big Fox's Matt Kleindens joins us now from Corning with tonight's top story.
Good evening, Marisa. Governor Hochul signed an executive order to greatly expand New York's healthcare workforce and monitor any potential staffing shortages at state hospitals. With potential staffing issues on the horizon for healthcare facilities, Governor Hochul signed an executive order to take action. The order comes a day after the state's deadline for healthcare workers to get vaccinated against COVID. The order allows for out-of-state and international workers to practice in the state and would fast-track the process for retired workers to get certified. The order also expands the list of people who can administer vaccines. Governor Hochul is also weighing whether or not to deploy medically trained National Guard members throughout the state. As of Monday, 92% of nursing home and hospital staff were vaccinated against COVID. The next deadline in the state's vaccine mandate is October 7th, when staff working in hospice, home care, and adult live-in facilities have to be vaccinated. Matt Kleindens, Big Fox, WYDC in Corning.
Chemung County reintroduced mask mandates in all county buildings today. County employees, visitors, and delivery personnel will be required to wear their masks indoors regardless of vaccination status. The decision comes after the CDC classified the county as a high-risk area following a COVID uptick. Chemung County has reported 489 new COVID cases in the past week. 258 children. CDC data shows that's the average number of children under the age of 18 sent to the hospital with COVID-19 every day last week. This week, cities and states around the country are putting mandates in places to try to keep more kids from getting sick, as vaccine manufacturers work on a vaccine for kids 5 to 11. Britt Conway has your mandate update and a look at when shots could be ready to go into the arms of little ones.
Beautiful girl. Kids and COVID-19. This surge is hitting them harder. Nearly 27% of recent cases were children. For kids younger than 12 who can't get vaccinated yet, experts say protection means masking up and vaccinating people who are eligible. In Arizona Monday, a judge struck down a ban on face mask mandates in schools just days before the ban was scheduled to become law. In Tennessee today, one of the state's largest school districts plans to implement a mandatory mask mandate ordered by a federal judge. The mask debate in the state has been a heated one.
Avoiding masks is not in the Bible, but taking care of others is.
Some protested. This was last month after another district's temporary mask requirement.
No more masks!
In New York City Friday, a vaccine mandate for educators goes into effect, so they can all be vaccinated by Monday, October 4th. In Massachusetts, it was announced this week the mask requirement in all public K-12 schools has been extended through at least November 1st. In the meantime, Pfizer says it's nearly ready to press for authorization of its COVID vaccine for kids 5 to 11.
I think we are going to submit this data pretty soon. It's a question of days, not weeks.
I would hope that by the end of October, we'll be there.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
The White House coronavirus response team says Americans are off to a pretty good start in getting their booster shots. Immediately following the Food and Drug Administration and CDC recommendations in booster shots for a wide range of Americans, the White House coronavirus response coordinator says booster shots were ready to be put in arms Friday. Though a good amount of individuals are already scheduling to get the added protection, he says the priority is still to get the unvaccinated their first and second doses.
Our planning and preparation on boosters have propelled a strong start. Just over this past weekend, at pharmacies alone, over 400,000 Americans received the additional protection of a booster. And almost 1 million people have already scheduled their booster shots through pharmacies over the coming weeks.
Currently, people who are aged 65 and older and those with underlying health conditions are encouraged to get the boosters. Have you given up on a future without COVID? Well, according to one study, most of us have. A Kaiser Family Foundation survey published yesterday found that 79% of adults believe COVID will continue at a low level, similar to the flu, and we will have to live with it for the foreseeable future. It is also a notion people appear to be taking in stride. 36% say they are satisfied but not enthusiastic about that future, with 35% more saying it makes them feel dissatisfied but not angry. Unvaccinated Americans appear to be slightly more optimistic about COVID's future. 18% of them say they think COVID will be eliminated in the United States. Airport security officers are intercepting more weapons at checkpoints than before the pandemic. According to the Transportation Security Administration, about 7,900 weapons have been found so far this year. Of those, about 4,500 are what the TSA calls live weapons, which includes things like loaded guns. Last year, officers found more than 3,200 guns, and 83% were loaded. TSA regulations permit traveling with guns that are unloaded, packed in hard containers, and checked into the cargo hold. A couple from the town of Chemung was killed over the weekend in a house fire along Denini Road. The fire took the lives of 50-year-old James White Jr. and his 65-year-old wife, Mary Lou White. Investigators have not disclosed yet the cause of the fire. The already convicted spa shooter is pleading not guilty to charges in a second Georgia county. Robert Aaron Long appeared in a Fulton County court today. He has already been sentenced to life without parole plus 35 years for deaths in Cherokee County. That was part of a plea deal with officials in the suburb north of Atlanta. 8 people died in the March shooting spree at 3 different metro Atlanta spas. Fulton County prosecutors say the shootings qualify as hate crimes and they will pursue the death penalty. Most of the victims were Asian women. Democrats are back at square one after Republicans blocked a bill that would fund the government, and time is running out. Alexandria Hoff has more now from Washington.
Victory is what's at stake.
It's do or die time for congressional Democrats trying to push ahead with President Biden's domestic agenda. But Republicans aren't making it easy. The GOP blocking a bill Monday night that would have funded the government through December and increased the debt ceiling, averting an unprecedented government default.
We could have passed a bipartisan continuing resolution last week, but the Democrats attached it to the debt limit. Even though Republicans were clear, we opposed tying these 2 votes together.
When the Republicans refuse to cooperate on this, they are jeopardizing the full faith and credit of the United States of America, which is guaranteed in the Constitution.
And that's just one of 3 major pieces of legislation being squeezed in this week ahead of the fiscal year's end. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is now moving to unlink a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill to the $3.5 trillion federal budget. A vote on infrastructure had been expected on Monday, but has been delayed until Thursday, so moderates and progressives can work on the larger bill, which Republicans have criticized as pushing a progressive agenda through spending. But some progressives also say they won't vote on infrastructure until the full budget passes, making any Republican support highly unlikely. The focus is now on the split within the Democratic Party, with a number of moderate holdouts saying they can't vote on the $3.5 trillion budget until it's trimmed down.
There are disagreements around what the size of this package looks like. We understand that. That's what the discussion is in part about.
The federal government officially runs out of money at midnight on Thursday. In Washington, Alexandria Hoff, Fox News.
Today, a Senate committee hearing from top leaders on the end of the war in Afghanistan and America's exit. Lauren Blanchard is in Washington with more.
Was it perfect? Of course not.
For the first time since the end of America's longest war, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Mark Milley, and the head of the Central Command, General Frank McKenzie, answering questions in the Senate Armed Services Committee on the withdrawal from Afghanistan that saw 120,000 evacuated but left Americans and allies behind.
It is clear, it is obvious, the war in Afghanistan did not end on the terms we wanted.
General Milley also addressing criticism he's faced over calls he made to Chinese counterparts.
I am certain that President Trump did not intend to attack the Chinese. And it is my directed responsibility, and it was my directed responsibility by the Secretary, to convey that intent to the Chinese.
Lawmakers in both chambers have been critical of the chaotic withdrawal where 13 service members died.
This was avoidable. Everything that happened was foreseen.
Our withdrawal this summer and the events surrounding it did not happen in a vacuum.
America's top brass also facing questions on whether the administration's handling has opened the U.S. to terrorism threats and how America could leave Afghanistan in the hands of the Taliban.
We've heard that over and over again, you don't negotiate with terrorists. And now it's required.
On Wednesday, Austin, Milley, and McKenzie will all testify before the House Armed Services Committee. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
Still ahead tonight, top U.S. health officials urging all of us to get both a flu and COVID-19 shot.
What you should do is get it as soon as you can and in the most expeditious manner.
Why health leaders say being protected from both viruses is crucial, and a look at how you should time out flu and COVID shots coming up.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Tonight's Big Fox forecast is brought to you by William Mattar. Good evening, everyone. We started off with very dreary conditions, a lot of rain, but most of that rain is pushing away as the boundary associated with it is now well off to our east. Just a few clouds remain for tonight, but overall, I'm expecting all this will be pushing off to the east, and then drier air will start to settle in as high pressure builds in, and the jet stream will dig down to the south, allowing for very cool Canadian air to settle in to the Twin Tiers. So tomorrow is going to be a cool day, and we are expecting the cool conditions to last for a couple of days, and here's the reason why. We have a high pressure system in the Atlantic, and it's really blocking this trough from moving anywhere, and so this cool air will stay around for the end of the week before that high starts to weaken. So here's a look at your Wednesday's forecast. Temperatures will gradually warm up into the mid-60s by the mid-afternoon hours, and we're expecting plenty of sunshine during the day as well. Just a few passing clouds, maybe even a little bit of fog as we start off your Wednesday. And then, as I was telling you, that blocking high will continue off in the Atlantic, and so that's going to keep the cool air around for a while. A ridge builds in, and we are expecting a little bit drier conditions as we head into later on this week. But we have another system that will come in, and it will bring the rain chances back. We'll talk about that in your extended forecast. But for tonight, we are expecting some patchy fog. Temperatures will be diving down to around 46 degrees. So it's definitely jacket weather or sweater weather for sure as we head into your Wednesday. As we head into the latter part of the afternoon, I think we'll see a few clouds. I'm going to call it partly sunny. Winds will be light coming in from the northwest at around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Highs only around 65 degrees. Our average is around 68, so it is going to be just a little bit below normal. But your extended forecast calls for temperatures that will be diving down as we head into your Thursday. Just a pool of cool air will start to make its way or settle in to the Twin Tiers, and so that's why we're going to stay with cool conditions on Thursday, and we plummet down into the 30s by Friday morning. So it's going to be a cold start to the day on Friday, but we managed to warm up to around 66 degrees. A little bit warmer conditions on Saturday, but here comes our next storm system that will bring the clouds back. Along with that, rain chances, and that will keep those highs mainly in the mid to upper 60s as we start off next week. Overnight lows will be back into the 40s.
New COVID cases are declining around the U.S., but the number of infections still remains high and hospitals continue to be strained. That's why top U.S. health officials are urging Americans to get a flu shot. Fearing a wave of severe illness from the flu could be devastating. Mandy Gaither has more on how you should time out flu and COVID shots in today's Health Minute.
Roll up your sleeves, not only for the COVID-19 shot, but also to protect against flu. That's the message from top U.S. health officials.
What you should do is get it as soon as you can and in the most expeditious manner.
As colder weather approaches, there's a fear that flu could further burden hospitals still strained from COVID-19 patients. Dr. Anthony Fauci says getting protected from both viruses is crucial.
If that means going in and getting the flu shot in one arm, the COVID shot in the other, that's perfectly fine.
Fauci says the convenience of getting both shots in one visit may make more people get it done.
Whatever it takes to get both of them, go ahead and do it.
The CDC recommends flu shots for everyone 6 months and older with a few exceptions. The agency says September and October are generally good times to be vaccinated, and ideally everyone should be vaccinated by the end of October. Top health officials say fighting flu and COVID-19 at the same time isn't something that's expected to go away.
You continue to have coronavirus spread, but not at the same rates we're seeing right now, and it settles into a pattern, more of a seasonal pattern, and basically becomes a second flu.
A recent poll finds a majority of Americans have resigned themselves to a future with the coronavirus. 79% of adults polled thought COVID-19 will continue at a low level as something the U.S. will learn to live with and manage, similar to influenza. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
An Ohio school board says it wants its classrooms to be as neutral as possible. So it's forcing teachers to remove things that could be controversial, which is launching its own controversy. David Winter reports.
406 students just lost the support that they need from their staff and from their peers, just like that, with one decision.
Members of New Richmond Pride, a pro-LGBTQ group in the small riverside town east of Cincinnati, turned out in force to the school board meeting after teachers were told to remove certain imagery from their classrooms. One teacher was told to remove this quote from Maya Angelou and this banner. Teachers were also told not to distribute this form anymore, asking students how they would like to be identified by he, she, or they.
We as a district, our classrooms, we want them to be as neutral as possible and be focused on the educational and curriculum services that we're providing.
The school board president confirmed that the controversial topic policy had been clarified to teachers. In fact, this email obtained by Local 12 is a directive to remove anything from classrooms that have rainbows on them, noting a politically charged era, the need to take a neutral stance, and continued complaints. But teachers at the school had received over the summer from a sensitivity consultant hired by the district rainbow stickers to put on their name tags that showed they were safe for students to speak with about LGBTQ issues. They were then also told to remove those stickers as well.
So are you implying that by having a rainbow sticker on your name badge, for instance, you're excluding other people?
You potentially could be, depending on what their beliefs and their philosophies are.
People like this parent.
I've got teachers that tell my kids, you can't say these things in school, you can't stand up for your Second Amendment rights.
There was a period of time when I was self-harming, and it was a very difficult time.
But this student, now an LGBTQ sophomore, said she went through a lot of turmoil when she was at New Richmond Middle School.
Would a rainbow and a name tag have made a difference to you?
I feel like it would have, to know that there was a teacher that was a safe space for me to be able to talk to. It would have made me a lot more comfortable and made me feel more accepted.
A remarkable rescue for a driver in Boston. His SUV veered off a bridge and into the water, but a university rowing team happened to be nearby. Emily Pritchard reports.
The back hatch of this SUV opened in the water after the driver was rescued from the Charles River Monday night. Mark McDermott was on a jog when it all unfolded.
It was frightening. You know, I'm thinking to myself, is the person driving it okay? A woman and her child had just walked by. So we're talking a matter of 5 seconds, really, between that car, you know, going, whatever, 30, 40 miles per hour right by.
McDermott says he saw the car's window roll down before this crowd of first responders arrived, and he felt things would be okay.
It was floating, the window rolled down, I saw a hand come out wave, And I'm like, all right, he's going to be okay.
Northeastern men's rowing team says 2 of its assistant coaches helped to pull that driver to safety.
Because there was a rowboat going by, like the coaching rowboat, swings back around, throws him a life jacket, and pulls him out.
The crew team in the water at just the right moment when the car splashed into the river. You can see lights under the water surface as a dive team checks to make sure no one else needed rescuing. Response crews working into the evening, preparing to lift this car with water up to its windshield out of the Charles River. And they eventually tow that car out of the water and onto dry land. McDermott grateful all are okay and happy to return to his run after an eventful evening.
I kind of want to finish my jog, but I'm just thankful everyone's okay. Especially, I mean, the woman and the child who, they were the ones that narrowly escaped.
You might want to start your holiday shopping now. The shipping crisis is making many items on your holiday list a bit more difficult to find and possibly more expensive. And now one major retailer is taking matters into its own hands to make sure there's enough inventory to meet demand. Jen Sullivan has a closer look at how a computer chip shortage is also adding to the big mess.
A global supply chain mess already impacting holiday shopping. Labor shortages, scarce and expensive shipping containers, and an ongoing computer chip crisis, all leading to costly price tags and fewer options.
It's a huge problem. Companies have been able to keep up, but it'll be more of what we're seeing, essentially higher prices.
Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo admitting computer chip shortages will likely lead to price increases for some of the items on your holiday list. Meanwhile, shipping issues are so severe that some big retailers are taking drastic measures to make sure there's enough supply to meet the demand this Christmas. Costco is chartering ships and renting containers to transport inventory between Asia, the U.S., and Canada. The move comes as Costco deals with major delays in toys, computers, tablets, and video games.
I think we're going to be struggling with it well into next year until we can really smooth out some of these bottlenecks.
Meanwhile, top toy makers say their products will be harder to find and more expensive this holiday season, blaming higher shipping costs that typically get passed down to consumers.
We do see inflationary pressure in freight cost, ocean freight cost and material. So we have to address that.
And it's also Christmas trees and decorations that will be more expensive as well. Some large sellers of artificial trees say they are already increasing their prices by double-digit percentages. For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
Instagram has paused efforts to develop a version of its photo-sharing app for children under 13 years old. The company has been facing scrutiny after it was revealed the social media platform knew its app could negatively impact teen girls. Instagram says it will take this time to discuss concerns with parents, experts, policymakers, and regulators. A Senate subcommittee is set to hold a hearing Thursday on how social media impacts the mental health of children. We want to leave you with a smile tonight. A herd of goats on the loose in Atlanta. Check this out. Video shows the goats walking around, enjoying the nice weather, and snacking on a little shrubbery in the Buckhead neighborhood. People in the area called to report it after spotting about a dozen goats trotting around a busy intersection. One driver reported seeing the goats in the middle of the road. Police say they were brought in to eat weeds at a nearby grocery store, but somehow they got loose. Animal Control eventually got called in to help round them up. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.